Those are at the White House. Gary Gensler announced he's stepping down at the SEC, which some people will have feelings about. And of course, the markets are going wild. Does anybody have a time machine? I don't want to see the dinosaurs, but if I could just go back 6 months and maybe make a purchase or two, maybe I wouldn't be on stage hosting events. Maybe I'd be on the beach somewhere. We're about to hear from two incredible leaders, one with the experience of building from zero in the Web3 space. Joe Lubin, who is the co-founder of Ethereum and the CEO of Consensys, will be joined in conversation with Frank McCourt, who is, of course, the executive chairman of McCourt Global, the founder of Project Liberty. Vivian Schiller from Aspen Digital will be moderating this conversation. Please welcome them to the stage.
Okay, hi everybody.
Hey Vivian. Hey everyone.
I'm excited for this session, and actually, I want to say that everybody's talking about crypto, particularly today, and they've never stopped talking about crypto. But in just sort of level setting for this conversation, I want to differentiate crypto, which I realize is a part of it, from Web3. Because cryptocurrencies are only part of the system. And actually, what's interesting to me is I feel like a lot of folks were talking about Web3 in the early part of this decade until sort of the shiny new kid on the block 2 years ago when ChatGPT launched sort of distracted people's attention away from that, which is probably good because these two innovators have never stopped thinking about it, have never stopped working on it, and have never stopped building towards an interoperable future where people can have more greater agency and control over their digital experiences. So that's what we're going to talk about. Not so much crypto, but I also want to just level set here that I think a lot of folks, and I know this from my very short dalliances working actually with Joe about 6-7 years ago on a journalism-based, blockchain-based journalism initiative, that folks still have a hard time understanding what it is and how it affects them directly. People understand buying and selling crypto, that's one thing, but they don't understand the underlying notion of the blockchain and Web3. So that's where I would love to start, and I'm going to start with you, Joe. So help us understand, we talk a lot about, this entire session has been about decentralization. So talk about your approach to decentralization and help folks understand how, other than buying crypto, how Web3 can benefit their lives directly.
In all of these years, we started trying to build applications, and first person who started to build applications tried to build an app store, and we recognized way back then that we were trying as our company Consensys to continue the vision and mission of the Ethereum project, but we had no technology effectively. We just had this client that ran the Ethereum network. We had no developer tools, and we had no expertise. So we ended up really becoming an infrastructure company. So the developers of ARPANET, the internet, the early web, they were all academic nerds, they were internet nerds, and nobody was watching them. When we come along and decide, hey, we need to re-architect the world on this new invention of decentralized trust that Satoshi brought forth, we were in a world where there are lots of tech-savvy people, and we're proposing to re-architect the internet, re-architect the web, re-architect society on live monetary rails. So what could possibly go wrong? Yes, we've been in a very speculative phase for many years. That speculative phase was married to what we were building, which was a whole bunch of protocols, different layers that grew scalability, that made what we were building much more affordable in terms of block space and transaction space. We've been working really hard to make it more usable. We had some usability issues, certainly. I think we were trying to make people click on 17 different times and answer different questions before we would onboard them. And thank you to Chair Gensler for holding our feet to the fire and helping us think about how to make things more rigorously decentralized. Thank you that he's going on to greener pastures. But it is now about to be legal, even though it wasn't actually illegal. It's now about to be very attractive to build applications in our ecosystem. So we've got the scalability, we've got usability, affordability, legality, and we're now ready to onboard lots of end-user applications that are compelling, business applications that are compelling. We've got lots of primitives that are unique to decentralized protocols. They're decentralized IDs, verifiable claims and credentials, attestations. These all form the foundational elements of social graphs. Social graphs, maybe I'll stop there, but social graphs are about to be one of the most fundamental constructs of Web3, the user-centric web, the re-decentralized web. Social graphs are going to become the patchwork replacement for the current social networks.
Well, social graphs leads me to you, Frank. This is sort of what a lot of what Project Liberty is focused on and working towards. You, of course, have your focus for a number of years now has been the DSMP. So help us understand how this broader sort of opening up of the opportunities and possibilities for Web3 marries with Project Liberty's broader vision.
Yeah, so the evolution of the web, right, which is, so we have the internet 50 years ago, World Wide Web 35 years ago, and so far so good. Everything's decentralized and moving in the right direction. About 20 years ago, there was a major pivot to a more centralized version, the so-called app age. And what these big platforms discovered is that the truly valuable information, the truly valuable data, is the data about us, our relationships, and now it's gotten to the point of it's how we think, how we emote, how we're going to react, how we can be triggered and all that. That's when Joe refers to social graph information, that kind of encompasses that set of relationships and just who, essentially, it's why I call it personhood. It's everything about us. And so that became the holy grail of these platforms and how the web evolved. And so when you think of the web, it's really become a social web. And so if we're going to reclaim agency, if we're going to, kind of reclaim our humanness, then we need to address the social graph. And so what Braxton and Harry developed and the idea at first, and then actually assembling a team to actually create the protocol, release the specifications, release it out into the world so people could build on it, is something that, it's a decentralized social networking protocol, but it's not just about social media. It's about everything we're talking about here, and how can we integrate this into this third generation of the web, which provides the identity, agency, control that we're talking about.
Yeah, so it's about self-sovereignty. It's about data and AKA personhood. Ronald Coase, economist, Nobel Prize-winning economist, defined or did his work on the theory of the firm, and he was his thesis was that why do we have a firm, essentially a socialist structure, in a free market capitalist context? And the answer is coordination costs are expensive, so you bring things close together. Decentralized protocol technology available to everybody, and there are tools like our delegation framework that can enable credible commitments across blockchains, across smart contracts, across people. This is all going to enable us to have firms that are smaller and smaller. We don't have typing pools anymore in our companies. Our companies can get very focused on their core competencies, and they can create great capabilities while being smaller and smaller. And so one can imagine with the advent of the AI age and decentralized protocols that a self-sovereign person can be enormously capable. And so the social graph is essentially a construct, and we can have a few of those things, but we can also have platforms that enable people to add content to their social graphs, to add functionality to their social graphs, and to create collaborations across those social graphs. So we're looking at a looming decentralized plus AI economy that's going to make essentially everybody out there CEO of themselves, effectively.
Yeah, there's one other point I think that's important, that when we started 5 years ago, I think there were maybe 100 self-sovereign ID projects, and now there's still 100 of them that haven't taken off. Why? If having a self-sovereign ID that's not connected to a social graph is of limited value. We can have all the agency, power, autonomy that we want, but we're connected to other people. We're connected to other things. We're connected to, and without the self-sovereign ID and the social graph working in tandem, you don't have the power and the fluency and the networking aspect of that, never mind the network effect. And so DSNP, in conjunction with other things that happen upstack, is really key. I really feel that Web3 really requires some core level, open source, thin layer protocol that's not tokenized, that's not, and then people can build interesting products up the stack. And we also think, by the way, that the top of the stack, the way you enter the internet, should also be open source, not owned by anyone, not tokenized. And the login with Liberty button that's going to be talked about a little bit later today that we're releasing, I think is it's transformative, because we'll be logging in to the internet. It will be ours again, and you won't be having 50 passwords and giving up your data to all these different
I think those.
cases.
Oh, go ahead, Joe.
Yeah. So one last piece. So Web 2 continued the business model as a sort of hangover from the 20th century. The business model has been for a long time, an organization offers as little as possible and extracts as much as possible from their consumers, an adversarial relationship. Web 3 by being based on open protocols and open specifications will now enable us to create a user-centric web, and that feels like it's going to be the natural business model of the web going forward.
And I think, Frank, you made a good point, or that was an important insight, to have non-tokenized layers, to give people a frictionless way to get into the funnel for those who are not quite ready for the 17 clicks, which I assume are coming down now.
So I can address that. So we have already fixed a lot of those frictional issues, but also we're moving to a profoundly different user interface to all the decentralized protocols. So in Web 2, there are so many different kinds of databases, and they each have different purposes. Very valuable to have that kind of diversity. We're going to have the same thing with all these different blockchain technologies, but we'll have a coherent, uniform interface to all of them. So what the interface of 12 months from now perhaps looks like is you speaking to an application or to your wallet. You're typing you're speaking verbally. Your AI agent ally, who's resident perhaps in your wallet, will interpret that and turn it into something called an intents description language. And you're basically stating your intentions. I want to swap this token for this token. I want to rebalance my portfolio. I want to get set up an environment to play this game with the requisite tokens. And that intent description language statement is sent to a solver network. Intent description languages are being worked on, a lot of work there. Solver networks are in place, a lot of work going on there. The solver networks will operate across different blockchain systems, working with different market makers who have inventories of tokens. They will take their own risk to satisfy your request, and we think we can get all of that done in 2 seconds. So it's critical to get all that done quickly, so no risk on the part of the user, and a very smooth universal interface. So we should start the civil project up again.
Let's do it.
With a kind of a universal ID. So rather than having you have lots of different applications, but rather than each application kind of owning your ID, and maybe they're great, run by great people, and they're super trustworthy and better than we have now, but they're still, I don't believe we don't want to be owned by any application, even in a decentralized world. We want to own us. So the idea of non-tokenized pieces, sort of true digital public infrastructure, is really important. So sort of at the bottom of the stack and at the top of the stack, because something else happened in Web 2, and that was the visionaries that created it as infrastructure with certain intent were not connected to the application developers who then took advantage of it with very different intent. So by having some open source layers at the bottom and at the top, connecting the infrastructure to the application layer gives us, again, another protection that there's actually a values proposition from bottom to top and top to bottom.
Oh, it's great to see this sort of maturing and simplification for the user of all of these processes. We have just a couple of minutes left, so I want to ask you both about, you both collaborate with a lot of partners, and my understanding now is you are collaborating together, Project Liberty and Consensys. So tell us about that.
So we're incredibly excited.
I want to make sure Joe and I are, so teasing.
Yeah, we're incredibly excited to work with Project Liberty and their social network protocol. We have been doing self-sovereign identity projects for many years. As Frank indicated, it's cute to establish a construct, a DID, that you consider the core, the root of your identity on chain and on the internet, but then what do you do with it? We're now at the point where there are many things that we can imagine doing with it, and especially essentially it being the root of a social graph. One can have multiple personas that are realized as DIDs. They can all be roots of social graphs. You can build out different social graphs. You can merge social graphs using a protocol. And what we look forward to seeing is platforms enable you to add content, enable you to add functionality to your social graph, and to monetize it. So with these tokens, you'll be able to receive compensation on your social graph. You'll be able to share the compensation with those who add value to your social graph. We have a technology that is a high throughput, layer 2, zero knowledge Ethereum virtual machine network, and it provides scalability on the Ethereum platform. We will have excellent interoperability across different networks, and so we're excited that they kicked the tires and appreciated the technology enough.
Did he get it right, Frank?
To partner deeply with us.
It's actually very, very big news that we're working together.
I think so too.
It's a Joe is someone that is deep into this space for a long time. Ethereum is the dominant layer 1, and MetaMask is the dominant wallet, and so this is a very huge collaboration that people may not realize it for a year or 6 months or something, but it's really seminal. And the second thing I would just leave you with is that it's where you started. Blockchain and this emerging technology is way more than crypto. I think I was successful in writing the book and not mentioning the word crypto a single time. It's back on the dot-com boom, there was a lot of dodgy stuff in late 90s, early 2000s. The dot-com boom and bust and so forth. There was a lot of really important technology that was being built at that time, and decisions were made that have sadly caused us to end up where we are now. Decisions are being made right now amongst all this, worthless stuff and dodgy stuff that are really, really fundamentally important here. And I think that getting this new technology to connect with people, social graph, social media, and so forth, as opposed to fintech products, where you have massive resistance by central banks, by countries, by credit card companies, by banks. It's much harder to make this mainstream through financial technology than it is through social. So I think this is going to be a very, very significant partnership.
So if we had we maybe should have renamed this panel to be "It's Not Just About Crypto." This is exciting. We're excited about your partnership, and I hope 1 year from now we'll be sitting right here and you'll tell us about how great it's going. But we're unfortunately out of time.
So it's about empowering everybody on the planet, and thank you. Congrats on this, and so excited for the partnership.
Thanks, Joe.
Thanks so much.
Vivian.
All right. Well, I told you big things are happening.